might be a little bit of a time delay. Sorry, it's been a while. I'm going to be doing some inking on a cover for a future Indiegogo comic book. I'm almost done with it, so it should be on to page 1. I might even be doing a little bit of layout work depending on how fast I move. Hope everybody's having a good Friday night. Everybody's keeping themselves in trouble. And we'll go where we gotta go. So I started working on this cover illustration a couple of days ago, and been getting some quality time in there with it, and wanted to get back to streaming a lot more. So that's what we're going to be doing. I actually did a stream recently with my friend, who I'm going to be doing some drawing with, I think, later, depending on how schedules work out, named Michael over at The Choice Voice, where we talked about the first Blade movie and a couple of other things. So that was a lot of fun, and it reminded me that I need to get back to this and back to streaming, because I want to make sure I'm promoting my art books and making sure I'm taking care of Shanth Enjeti art, which is a major priority right now. Is growing Shanth Enjeti art and growing what we do. So the next phase of it, logically, is going to be a crowdfunded Indiegogo comic book, which I have been considering for a while, and I have become more and more certain that's what I want to do and what I'm ready to do in the last couple of weeks and months. Just a lot of interesting stuff going on. So, I should point out, I also started a Patreon recently, so there's a Patreon to go check out, and the link is in the description. Like and subscribe. Always important. And if you don't like and subscribe here, like and subscribe to Townsend's, because I love that YouTube channel. Got to shake off the ring rust here a little bit on this too, so be patient with me. So what you've got here is a vampire piece. I've been watching a lot of Hammer horror films put out by Shout Factory, and this poor fellow right here, if I can get it to focus, is having a pretty rough time of it right now. He's taken a sword to the head, which is suboptimal. I was actually watching my good buddy Will Codorf stream the other night, and he was doing some killer work. At some point, I've got to get Will on a stream, or I have to go on one of his streams to talk about art and comic book work, because he's a tremendous talent. And watching him work reminded me I need to get back after this, because there's so many amazing people who are promoting their crowdfunded comics right now on YouTube who inspired me to do my work, and I want to make sure that I am getting some time in doing the same, because I do think that that is the future of comic book stuff, as is other things, other exciting things. Oh, sorry, distracted. My wife's phone just went on. Sorry about that, guys. But it's not a big deal. Just remind it. Let me see here. But yeah, there's been a lot of really interesting stuff happening in crowdfunded comics now for the last couple of years. And I mean, I love that stuff. I love seeing people crowdfund. I love seeing people do indie comics. It's kind of where I got my start. In the last, gosh, I want to say, in the last couple of weeks, I've rediscovered an artist who I was a huge fan of as a kid, and actually bought some original sketches from him, which is terrific. And they were hugely inspiring to get to actually see his work. And I don't know why I haven't really felt... I've done some sequential stuff, but to be honest, when my watercolor and gouache style came along, it didn't immediately translate over to comics, because part of the reason why I started working in this way was because I was, thinking about it more just in terms of single illustrations. And then as I got faster and faster at it, which I'm actually really fast at right now, it sort of dawned on me that, I've been creating comics my entire life in one form or another, and the last book, for those of you who backed book 2, the last book had more sequential art stuff in it, and the first book didn't have any, and it was kind of just me trying to kind of see how I felt about it, and you know, I love comics, but I wanted to see how it came together in a piece. And while it was interesting, it sort of was more like the starting process of this whole, you know, comic illustration thing that I'm doing right now. So this right here is me kind of putting it all together, because I think I use that book for character development more than anything else. And let's see here. Oops, okay, I have that right in front of my face there, so let's move that down. So this right here is a fun little nod to Disney's Haunted Mansion, for those of you guys who know it. This is a little bit of the greenhouse that's over the back half of the house. I'm using just a little section of it to create a cool haunted image. And I'm using a number 3 brush, Aqua Elite brush by, let's see, Princeton. The really cool thing about working and doing independent work is I think you have the freedom to create the stuff that you want to create. And if you have ideas, and if you have work ethic, and if you have motivation, and you can build a fan base, it's possible for you to do anything. And if you had told me that I was going to be able to do an art book back when I started all this stuff, I would not have believed you, because it wasn't something that I ever considered. There were crowdfunding platforms in place, and by the time that there were, I was a little bit, you know, I was a little bit older, and I didn't really think about doing anything with it. And so now that I have, it's made me realize that there's a tremendous amount of freedom. All you need is work ethic, and you need work ethic, and you have to be willing to promote the stuff, and you have to handle the printing and getting things shipped, and you know, all of those complications that come along with it. But it's fun because you get to make the stuff that you want to make, and you don't have to have, you know, someone telling you what you can and can't make. And I think that's really a fun, exciting part about the current indie movement in comics and in art books. So that's kind of what my plan is. I don't really see my work, that's what I'm looking for. I'm more interested in doing my own stuff and creating things that I have equity in than I am in basically working as a laborer at this point. Is not that interesting to me unless it's for somebody who does really cool artwork and is commissioning me to do something, which I have been very lucky to have quite a few of those this year. And so I do enjoy doing commissions, and I do enjoy creating artwork for people who are passionate about it. But you know, you get to a certain point in your life where you want to make artwork and you want to make something that you own, and that's really where I'm at right now, is making work and making things like those art books that are directly to the customer, and things that I have creative control over, because ultimately that's what is important to you when you get to a certain point in your career. It's not about, you know, any of the other nonsense. You know, I don't think it ever has been, but that's been very much reaffirmed to me lately in the work that I'm doing, is ownership of my work, telling my own stories, and working with people who are fun, and working with people who are interesting and exciting in how they go about things. I certainly don't want to work in any kind of artistic endeavor where I have to put myself out there with bad ideas. So that's not my thing. And there's so many cool people out there too. I mean, there's so many people out there who are doing interesting work, and you know, even just amazing collectors out there collecting some cool stuff. I've been checking out some YouTube videos of Horror Monster Collectibles, which is just a great channel, and he's inspired me a lot in my work just by looking at some of the cool stuff he collects. I think I started, you know, really kind of seeing that horror work, and then of course my friend Michael over at The Choice Voice, who introduced me to Hammer horror movies and indie comics. It just kind of reminded me of my roots. You know, I mean, it's there's something about illustration, there's something about comics that I love, and and also science fiction fantasy illustration. It's the humor, it's the wit, it's the fact that you can go anywhere and you have sort of this ability to express yourself freely. And honestly, I think that right now, one of the reasons why I've become so interested in that is because a lot of the work that I'm seeing out there, whether it's in mainstream entertainment or it's in mainstream comics, to be honest with you, a lot of that stuff it feels like it's designed and created by committee, and I just don't care for that. And I don't have, any interest in having. The reason I became an artist, and the thing that interested me in being an artist, and particularly why I feel fortunate to get to be an artist, here in America, is the fact that I have the right to express myself freely, and I have the right to benefit from my own labor. And I think that is something that, it sounds great, and it sounds flowery, and it sounds, interesting, but you have to do a lot of work to put it into practice. And it's what's kind of cool about it is that if you have great work and if people are, interested in your stuff, you don't have to ask, and go through 1,000 steps to figure out how, to be allowed to put your work out there. You can actually have your backers, like my amazing backers and people who support my work and buy my art books. They can allow you to create stuff, and allow you, I should say, to print stuff, because you have to do the creating part, but they can allow you to create books and create, concepts that you can then bring and put out the way. That color is so nice. I love that color. And that's the stuff I'm into. I think, I was watching Big Trouble in Little China the other day, which I love that movie. And I was just thinking, can you even make a movie like this anymore? Of course you can't. And looking at old comic books and thinking, gosh, could you even imagine that being done right now? I don't know when things got so boring, but they just are. And I sort of am so tired of the whole looking at things and, saying, oh gosh, actually, I really don't go through that phase that often, but I'm tired of kind of the whole, I basically say to myself now, if you want something better, put it out there and give it a shot. And thankfully, I've been able to do 2 art books, and I'm very proud of both of them. And so that's what I'm interested in doing now with comics, because there's a lot of people who are trying to get comics, to be an art form again, and I'm hoping that it does become one. And I hope the same thing happens in a lot of the art forms out there. I've been doing independent comics and self-publishing books since I was, I think, maybe 13 or 14. And I think it's, it's just a part of my DNA. It's a part of how I think and how I operate. And I think sometimes, as creatives and as people, living a responsible life, one of the things that we're doing is, hang on a second here. What? Oh, sorry. Music is pretty loud. Okay, there you go. Alright, let me see here. The music is pretty loud. My assistant over there was just letting me know something was happening in the chat. The music is pretty loud. Mike's probably pretty loud too. Let me see here. There you go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. But yeah, I think that it's one of the reasons why I got into doing what I do, is the ability to create stuff that's kind of interesting. And so, I've been looking at old books and old movies and things like that. And now I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, what should I do with all of this? Where should this go? And where it's going to go, we shall see. There we go. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better. I'm just looking, I'm just curious here. Oh, there we go. That's better. Thank you. And the stream is going well. Oh, that's too funny. Alright, let me see here. Actually, I don't know if it's going well. I have a lot of ring rust and a lot of exhaustion. There we go. Get that brush working here. I don't know why my chat's not making any sounds, but just so you guys know. Alright, let me see here. Alright, there you go. There you are. Alright. Got little people of Stonehenge walking around in this house. What can you say? But yeah, I mean, I've been looking at a lot of comics, and I actually recently just got a product from a Kickstarter campaign and some products from Indiegogo campaigns. And the production quality, I mean, I've worked really hard on my own art books, and I work really hard trying to get them designed the way I want them to be designed. And I work with a really great printer who's been incredibly supportive, called Edition One, and they're great. And you know, and I got comic books in the mail, and I got an action figure in the mail by one of my heroes, Todd McFarlane, recently, and it's amazing, you know. And he's just doing some killer stuff. And I've been a fan of his forever, and he's always been an independent creator. There's a great documentary out there on Todd that's called Like Hell I Won't, and that kind of attitude is something that was a huge inspiration for me. You know, is that whole idea of, you know, being an artist comes with a certain amount of, I don't want to say it comes with like a tremendous amount of risk. If you're dedicated and you work hard and you improve your skill set, then the risk is going to be minimal, in the sense of it's just as risky as any other profession. But I think that as creators, this whole creativity by consensus thing does not interest me, and more importantly, it doesn't work. And so when I go to create things, I'm looking for increasingly, and I'm drawn to and more interested in, people who are doing things on their own, people who are creating things outside of that box. And that's been what's inspiring me. And that's what I'm following for right now. We'll see where it takes us. Had some really cool work I've done recently. Did a commission recently, and when I can share it and talk about it, I will do so here. So, but looking forward to that. Looking forward to independence. I think that's a really important thing. That's what all artists are kind of, you know, if you're going to take the risk and you're going to put the work in, you want to be able to benefit from that, and that's the cool thing about right now. I mean, I look at Todd McFarlane raising, you know, he raised like $3 million on his campaign. I mean, and it's just incredibly inspiring to me. There we go. I think that, I put the camera on my face a little more so I can show you what I'm looking at. Let's see if this works. There you go. Let's see if I can adjust the lights here. There's going to be some noise, so brace yourselves. Because I've got to get this to be in position here. And it still looks like it's in shadow now. So that didn't work at all. There we go. That's a little bit better. There it is. Now it's in focus. Now I just have to wait for it to slide and move, which it's totally doing right now. There you go. Alright, I gotta figure this one out. Move the camera over to right about there. Alright. So yeah, this is a character I'm working on right now. I've done some hand letter type on it. And then I've got more artwork that I'm going to be uploading in high res on my Patreon, so that's been kind of fun. And then other than that, just making work. But yeah, I mean, some of the print quality is crazy. And this is actually a reference to a comic book that I read when I was a kid called Grips by an artist by the name of Tim Vigil. I was a huge fan of his, and if ever there was an artist who illustrates things that are out there, he's definitely in that category. And I've always kind of loved the black and white indie scene, and of course right now there's some really cool stuff going on. So right now production costs have gone down so low that you can do pretty much anything. So let me see here. See if I can get the muscles to work. There we go. Yeah, I'm just trying to get that line in there. It's a little bit overstated, but it's easier for me to knock things back when I'm doing my work. Or it's easy enough, I should say, for me to knock things back. So I don't mind putting it, you know, in there a little bit darker and then bringing it forward. So that's it. All right. Here we go. Can always try to check and remember to look at the chat. Let me see here. That. trying to figure out what I'm going to do here on this thing. So I've got color there. I think I need to put the anatomy a little bit stronger on the arm on the left side. Focus the right arm. So that's what I'm going to be doing right here. It's tough. There's so many great artists out there working in the independent scene right now. So much inspiring work. It's great. Like it's reminding me how excited I used to get when, you know, comics, you know, and comic artists were doing just incredibly brilliant, detailed, popular works. And it's funny, I look at my stuff a lot differently now when I'm doing it, just because I'm seeing so much amazing stuff. I mean, the stuff that I came up on was really impressive, and then a lot of the older stuff was really impressive as well. But it's just right now I feel like there's a lot of artists in the indie scene who are just doing amazing stuff. So my hope is, you know, that when I'm doing this, that I want to do something that someone looks at and says, I want to pick this up. Something that's going to be, you know, fun and pulpy, like a Hammer horror film. I was looking at a lighting artist that worked on, I think his name was, oh gosh, what was that? I think it's Jack Asher, if I'm not mistaken, who worked on the Hammer horror Hound of the Baskervilles, and I was actually crashed my friend Will Podorf's stream, not really crashed, I just commented in it, and he was talking about a really great, you know, kind of B film by Tobe Hooper called Life Force. And so, I mean, I'm looking at all this really, you know, cool and interesting stuff that is the complete opposite of you know, the state sort of PC stuff that's out there these days. And I have no problem using an antiquated expression right there, just because I think it's hilarious. But I remember when comics, things like The Dark Knight, and things like Todd McFarlane stuff were out there, and you know, that's the stuff I kind of grew up on. Grew up on Sam Keith's The Max, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Todd and Dave Stevens' The Rocketeer is a really good example. I remember which was in the background there. But yeah, comics were really, really fun. Things like Grips were just crazy. And when Tim Vigil was illustrating Grips, I mean, it was just like, you know, it was like a vigilante comic where things suddenly got incredibly violent, and you were just kind of surprised by it. You were like, what the heck? And comics used to have that. I mean, comics used to be sort of these amazingly cool, sexy action, you know, comics. And right now, they just, it's, you know, I don't want to talk too much about where, you know, where comics have been, because I think we're moving on to the future, and I'm certainly getting some stuff that is incredibly cool. So I can't complain. It's amazing to me that it has to come from the outside, but I think that that's what happens when, you know, artists are not able to express themselves freely in any art form. That's what's going to happen. You're going to get really boring stuff. But what can you do? It's not like, at least in my experience anyway, it's not like it's publishers who are the biggest problem when it comes to that. In a lot of cases, it's artists. So, you know, not always the best move for any art form. My attitude is, and my belief, frankly, is at this point, is create cool stuff and put it out there, and don't try to police what other people do. It's not my whole thing at all. Let's see. That looks good. But then that's what I grew up with, so. Which is to say, good understanding of civil rights, freedom of expression. What can you do? There you go. That's good. That's starting to come together. The tough thing is I'm getting a reflection on it, and so it's probably not showing the values as well as I would like it to, but you're getting some of that subtlety in there. There we go. Let's see here. That's right, you gotta work on stuff. That's the fun part of it, right? Yeah. Working on art is everything. It's really, really fun. yeah, for me, I mean, I think the number one thing that I respond to when I'm looking at work these days is I've always had a little bit of an allergic reaction to, certain aspects of not putting, the time and the effort into the detailed work. Like if I'm going to buy something, when I'm looking at a Frank Frazetta, for example, which I've got some Frank Frazetta prints and I've got some of his art books here, I want to see detail. I want things to be, or how do I word it? I want it to feel like somebody worked hard on it and that they were able to deliver it. And that goes from start to finish. And, when I'm looking at book proofs, I've got like 4 or 5 book proofs over here of the various times I've had to get second book proofs. And my attitude is if I put the detail here in the artwork, I want to put the detail into the finish. And so my thing is that, I'm always looking at the people that I admire and in terms of their crowdfunding stuff, and I'm just like, they put so much detail, so much attention to quality control when they're shipping the stuff and how they pack it. I pay a lot of attention these days to all the ways in which people pack up their artwork, and that's kind of, to me anyway, one of the really fun things about it, is being able to look at people's process, and then they deliver really good stuff too, really good stuff. But it's a tough thing to do. It's really strange to me, but oh shoot, I just realized it's not in frame. There we go. It's not just making artwork. It's not just any of that stuff. A lot of the creators in comics who have gone on to Indiegogo and platforms like that have dealt with a ton of awful stuff. Being canceled, being attacked, having people go after their careers, and it's just something that I'm completely shocked by. Well, not really shocked at all, to be honest with you, but it's one of those things that when you see comics creators who are being attacked and gone after, it's amazing. It's amazing to me to think that artists would want to be able to dictate what other artists do, and it's nothing I can ever be a part of, is that, because I'm interested in creators. If someone tells me that I shouldn't be looking at something or I shouldn't be checking something out, when I was in my younger years and still to this day, to quote Deontay Wilder, that would make me think I should probably go check that out. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing, but it's nothing to do with me. I just think I am interested in seeing other stuff. I think it was Neil Gaiman who said, if you don't stand up for the stuff you disagree with, when they come for the stuff you do agree with, you've already lost. And that's not to say that I don't agree with the stuff I support, or I do 100% agree with it, but I think that should be self-explanatory. I like good artwork, I like great artwork, I like hardworking people, and I don't believe everything I read about people, because I think that's insane. That looks good. It's coming together. Let me see here. Let's see here. So I'm putting in a little bit of a blue highlight right there, and I need to put in some warms because right now it looks kind of ghostly, which would be cool if that's what I was trying for, but that's not really what I'm trying for there. So I'm going to go ahead and put some warms in. was talking with my friend Michael. We were talking about Blade and, you know, the entertainment industry and some of the insanity that's going on in that. And, you know, just amazing to me. You know, for young creators right now, and especially with Michael's Star Trek fan film, I'm just like, come on. You know, let's make our own stuff. We've got the ability. Michael and, you know, the person he collaborates with, they just do some incredible stuff. And I'm just thinking, I cannot wait to see their first independent project, because then they can crowdfund it. There are a lot of limitations on crowdfunding if you're using an established property due to certain new legal things governing fan films, which is, you know, I understand they own the copyright to it, but I also think it's just more incentive for us to do our own stuff. Here we go. That's coming together. This stage is always kind of tricky for me because I want to give the face some detail, but I don't want to get too contrasting. There we go. But yeah, got some very cool stuff lately in the mail. I was looking at, let's see what I got here. Gosh, what do I have? Tons of stuff. Books, tons of books, tons of proofs. Love notes from my wife, which was always nice to see. I've got... This has been inspiring me right now, actually, at the moment. This is a Mezco... Oh, hopefully the camera's not too bad. This is a Mezco Dog Nocturnal book they did, which is sort of H.P. Lovecraft meets H.P. Lovecraft meets Phantom and a bunch of other things. I'm trying to think. It looks like Skeletor to me when I look at it. And then these are some Cyber Frog trading cards I just got in the mail, which are pretty cool. And the reproduction quality on these is great. Nice, heavy stock. And then this right here, I can't believe this is crowdfunded. This is a crowdfunded Todd McFarlane Spawn action figure. And what's wild to me is when we talk about independent publishing and independent creators, that thing's never going to stand there again. There we go. We talk about independent publishing and independent creators. The thing that amazes me the most about it is the quality that you can get at this point, which is, you know, bananas. I mean, to do an independent book or an independent comic meant to work for a smaller publisher. Self-publishing, even though the original Ninja Turtle stuff, you know, was. Self-publishing was never particularly easy, because you had to still go through art directors and editors, you had to go to conventions, you couldn't showcase your work online. And I mean, my gosh, some of the graphic novels and trades and comics I'm getting right now are just crazy. And they're the kinds of things that, see if I can move that camera in so I can actually get my face close enough to the work. There we go. So that I can, so I can see it. My vision's heading out now. There we go. These are very small fingers in perspective holding on to this character's hand. And the problem with that is I don't have a lot of room to put them in, and they're very foreshortened. They do what, you know, hands do when they turn a corner. Oh my gosh, I can't even see that. Let's see if the camera's even focused on it. There we go. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. There we go. This brush is really doing pretty well. I'm actually kind of impressed. I'm having to be a little careful with it just because partially because of my vision, and then also because of the fact that when I get all the colors down there, it's really tough, and I've got the camera close to my eyes, so it adjusts my focus a little bit. But yeah, crowdfunding is definitely, I mean, any artist who wants to learn anything about crowdfunding would do well to look at the people who are just doing a great job with it right now. I mean, that's sort of why I started doing what I'm doing right now. I mean, my first crowdfunding project was from watching Indiegogo comic campaigns. That was why I did it. I mean, why it occurred to me, because I saw somebody my age who grew up on the same kind of comics I grew up on, doing stuff. You know, I saw a lot of people, and they were talking about artists we grew up on, and I thought, is that even still, like, you know, I was illustrating at that point the things that are in my art book and the things I'm doing now are really influenced by Frank Frazetta, which is from an era or two before us. And I mean, that's still what I do, but there's this kind of really great EC Comics, you know, gnarly sort of quality of work that has pretty much drifted out of comics or been shoved out of comics, and it's finding its own home because you just can't kill quality. It's just the way it is. People have skills and they will find an audience, and I think it's probably more true today than it's ever been. And you know, it's if too many of these people are pushed out, what they inevitably start to figure out is, hey, we can start our own thing, and they do, and it's great, better for everybody when that's the case. You get more interesting work, and you get real diversity of thought, which is a big thing. And it's an interesting aspect of it, because for a long time, being an artist, there have always been companies, there have always been contracts, there's always been work for hire agreements and contracts. But what's interesting to me is that very skilled people were respected as such, almost like in any field. And so they were the most important people on your team. At a certain point, sort of the power over creative people, influenced by people with too much time on their hands, or interested in making sure that if they couldn't be creative and talented, then nobody else was going to be allowed to show their skill, get involved. And it still makes me scratch my head, like, why on earth that happens, but it does. And to me, what was really funny is that creators with skill left and did their own thing, and now a lot of the places they were forced out of are floundering, and that's what happens. You know, it's happened with Image Comics in the early 90s. It was, I don't know how many times it's going to take for people to learn their lesson on that one, but, you know, the people who are responsible for the most success at any institution, you know, that's where you got to put your interest in. And if you want to play games with that, I mean, they've got more options these days than ever before. So I don't know what to say about it. Really strange. But I know when Todd McFarlane left, people thought he was crazy when he went off to do his own thing, and I think he turned out okay. There we go. It's getting there. Doing the continual zoom out, the real life zoom out. There we go. I love those little contrast moments. Whenever I put middle tones in, and I get shadows in there, that's one of my favorite things to do. Let's just get that contrast. There we go. There you are. It's working well. Okay, let's forget it. I'm trying to check if it's out of focus. There we go, that's a little bit better. And then let's see what else I want to do. So I've got some windows here that I was doing, and then I've got some creepy, crazy tentacles that are right around some hand lettering. So there's some hand lettering. Let's see if this focuses. Yeah, that's doing okay. Let's zoom out just a little bit more. Is that in focus? Let's see here. Well, my hand was in focus. Let's see if the painting is. There you go. That's doing better. So, Yeah, I had fun talking on Michael's stream. Michael did a really great stream recently. He did a really great stream where he ranted about the cancellation of Pepe Le Pew. That just cracked me up, but he comes from a similar school of thought as I do about just the insanity of that. But you know, what are you gonna do? There we go. That's really good. Yeah, I mean, it's talking with Michael about Blade the other evening was such a blast. I mean, he's just it's nice to spend some time around people who are your age and from a different, from a different perspective and from different places. And if there's one thing about YouTube that's been really cool for me and getting out there is that, you kind of get to see what people make of your work. And it's really neat when you see people you admire responding to your work in any shape, form, or fashion. It's really a blessing. I've been fortunate enough to have that. And I think also it just it really burns me out creatively if I'm not around people who are just motivated and thinking about what their craft is and thinking about the customer and thinking about making things. I watched this video by Brian Pulido, who was, I think I talked about him a few times this week with people, but Brian Pulido talking about how to build a loyal fan base and how to do things like that. And it's amazing because it seems like really simple stuff, but it's not common sense. It's only common sense for people with common sense. And I just was amazed by all the things. I mean, I wasn't amazed, but it was the way that he broke things down. He broke things down like somebody who has experience actually making things and selling things. And I think that was the thing for me that I'm just going to just brighten so I can see that a little bit better. That was the thing that surprises me, that if someone who is actually doing the thing is giving out advice, there are going to be some things in most cases, certainly if you've been doing work, but there are going to be some things that but then there are going to be other things that you didn't know that make the other things come together a little bit more. And Brian gave me a bunch, Pulido gave me a bunch of things I was not thinking about. And his outfit is called Coffin Comics. And if you want to check them out, do check out their YouTube channel. They're pretty amazing. There we go. It's funny, my son was looking at the Cyberfrog trading cards. He was pointing something out, and I was thinking, I didn't even think about that. But he was like, well, he should do? He should round the corners on those cards. And, I was thinking, oh, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think about that, but my son used to collect Pokemon cards, so. And I thought to myself, oh, yeah, maybe I should shoot Ethan an email and tell him that. But, he's too busy being accused of God knows what else, being a white nationalist and everything else, so he's got a lot on his plate. And I want him to focus on making artwork. Oh gosh, I'm so excited to see a Dale Keown cover that he's working on. Dale Keown did he's working with Dale Keown on a project coming up, and Dale did a book called, I think he's a Canadian artist, but I'm not positive, and a musician, and he did a comic book called Pit in the 90s, and he also worked on the Hulk, and I forget what projects he's doing right now, but he's another one of those artists that are from the mid-90s, if I'm not mistaken. And Dale just did some killer, work, and his stuff is out of print. It's really hard to find. I think the trade paperback that I got on, sorry Sirens folks, the trade paperback that I got on eBay of Dale's work is just like the trade paperback I got of Tim Vigil's grips. I mean, it was printed when it came out, so there are no there's no new printing of it, and it's the same thing with you know, all of these comics. I just think someone needs to get the rights for them and reprint them, and you know, I'm hoping that that's going to happen with Pitt, because I think there's just a ton of people out there. I think Dale still owns the rights, you know, to it, you know, so I can't imagine that there are massive obstacles. I'm trying to carefully not, you know, have the title out there. See, whenever I'm doing that kind of scrubbing technique with the brush, the biggest thing I run into is it damages the point of the brush, so I have to be careful. And, you know, I have to do it to some extent. I know Drew Struzan says that about his brush work. He says, you know, oh, you know, it's like people say, oh, you're going to damage the point of your brush. And he's like, yeah, but I'm going to get a cool painting. And I would agree with that. I think Drew has got, obviously, I will agree with almost anything when it comes to Drew talking about artwork. But Struzan is one of those artists who I'm going to go with, but I can't, like, afford to lose my brushes too fast. So I have to kind of hang on to them. If I scrub, particularly with these brushes, they're great brushes. Do not get me wrong. I love these brushes, but I do have to conserve, you know, their points a little bit, because, and it's the same thing. I'll use a Pelican Pan Opaque watercolor set, which is what I paint with, for a long time, and and I'll go until the colors are muddy. But when I'm trying to do something fresh and that's new and it's vivid visually, if I scrub my brushes down and if my colors get too muddy, I can't do that. So I really had to start with a new paint set recently, because I want this project. I want this project to be the comic book that I always wished I could do, or the comic book I was on my way to doing until I got sidetracked, and in a sense of not sidetracked in a great way, in some regards, you know, like it took me down all of these interesting avenues, and those were great, and they led to me getting here with my work. But what I mean to say is, I don't know if I had a good, I got more of an angle and lower here. I don't know if I had a good, you know, take on, you know, what a comic book. See, I'm hating how that's looking. The framing on that. That's the best way to deal with this, because of the way it's adjusting the focus. I may just have to paint behind the camera just for a second. Actually, let me shrink my silhouette here. There we go. Mischief managed, as they say. So let's see. There we go. Now you can see it. So when I'm working, one of the things that I will try to do, there we go, is create something. It isn't like it's, oh, this is how I wanted my artwork to look when I was a kid, because I couldn't have conceived of doing painted gouache work. You know, I mean, comics are largely pen and ink and digital. So there we go. And, you know, so, I mean, there's that whole aspect of it, but I was doing this kind of, you know, this fun adventure sort of comic and these movies that I like, and I don't feel like any of us who have skill or have ideas should sit this one out right now. I guess that's the best way I could put it. And I don't see it as, it's really kind of hard to describe, because I don't want to overstate it. I like what Werner Herzog says, you know, that I'm a quiet soldier of cinema. I sort of see it as being a quiet soldier of the art form of comics, the art form of illustration, and, you know, wanting to see it grow and thrive, and not wanting to see it get, you know, torn to pieces. That's a major part of it for me. There we go. That's okay. those lines in there. And now I can move this camera over a little bit. There we go. Let's see what else we have here. Line mark, lines, and there you have it. I remember growing up on, you know, things like Mad Magazine and Cracked, and I used to think those things were so cool. And, you know, indie comics like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, people, you know, it's like these things are institutions now, you know, but they were just so fun and so cool in terms of, you know, how they came out independently. And in a lot of ways, working in the mainstream when it shifted in the 90s, when people like Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee and them and Mark Silvestri, and even the later gang, you know, like Dale Keown, when they left mainstream comics, the thing that was kind of crazy about it is you could see in their work, you could see that, you know, they were, that's what I'm looking for. You can see that what they had been doing professionally was having an impact on what they did when they went independent. And then I think there was a generation after them that in some cases they went straight to independent, and then they did the opposite. They ended up in the industry. And a lot of those folks who kind of, you know, have done that are sort of now returning to their independent roots. And what's cool about that is that a lot of the things that they kind of missed by going straight into indie comics, when they returned to indie comics, the benefit of their knowledge base is really starting to show in their stuff. Their writing maturity, their the way they think about things, because, you know, all of the work that I've done for other people, working on jobs, and all of the work that I've done as an illustrator has been, let me see if I can get this to work here. There we go. All the work I've done as an illustrator has been built around, you know, or has led me to develop these skills, a certain set of skills, has led me to develop these skills and the skill set. And then now that I'm coming back to comics without even thinking about it, it's just all there, you know, like just in terms of my comfort in creating this stuff. So let's see if I can make that happen. I mean, but things like, you know, the paper stock for comics changing in the 90s and all that stuff was great, and all of the craziness with, you know, foil covers and all that stuff. But as I started to see European comics and a lot of the other work that's out there, it's opened up what we can do. So I think, you know, more than likely one of the things I'm going to be doing with this as I, you know, take it to, you know, print is I'm probably going to keep the format about the same as my art books, because I just like that format. I think it's great. Now that depends on a lot of other factors. We'll see when I'm crowdfunding this and when I'm putting it together, what people think about that. But it's kind of what I want to do, and it's probably because, you know, I'm not so beholden to that particular format, because one of the comics I grew up on, which was the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that comic was really, what's the word I'm looking for? That comic was done so indie that when they sent it to the printer, they got the measurements wrong, so it was printed on 8.5 by 11. So one of the most successful comics, and one that was a huge influence on me as an artist, was printed at, you know, a very atypical comic format. I think that's one of the things that kind of made it stand out and made it so I don't know, so interesting. There we go. Actually, as an example of that, I have the trade paperback of Grips that I got just the other day, and I'm referencing the cover, but I should take a look at the font choice right there in the top corner. I mean, this looks like this was, designed in Microsoft Word. This is. I actually know what this border is from. Like, I think this was early Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, when this was printed, and then of course the paper stock inside, is this pulp, kind of paper stock, and you can see that the illustrations were illustrated not at the right format. So I get that to focus here. Oh, here's the artwork. Hang on a second. That's all right. It's durable. Come on, focus. There we go. Grips, nowhere to escape, and you can see, the reproduction quality on this. It bled a lot because of the paper, and but it was, that's the last time that book has been collected. I mean, when was this printed? Actually, let me see. This was printed in 1990. Think about that one for a minute. So that was printed when I was maybe 7th or 8th grade, when a lot of people weren't born. So that's the last time that's seen print, and it's weird because so much has changed. It would not take a lot of money to crowdfund a reprint of that book. I don't know who has the rights, and I don't know how that works, and the crowdfunding work that's involved. But geez, I have to imagine there's some audience for it, because I know it had a high print run, and a lot of us saw it in our shops and bought it. So who knows? And there's some books from that era that I just can't find copies of. I was looking for this book called Nightmaster that was also illustrated by Tim Vigil, and I'd love to see a collection of the Silver Wolf Comics Tim Vigil stuff. That'd be cool to see, but you never know. Uh-oh, trouble's in the chat. The Choice Voice, good to see you, boss. Oh, it's hard to hear me. Hold on a second, let me see if I can boost my mic. Oh, is it the music that's the problem? Tell me which one it is, Michael. We'll see what we can do. You know me, and I've been having audio trouble lately. Let me see here. There we go. Let me see here. Maybe I need to turn the music down way lower. It's probably the music. Let's move it way down, and then I'm going to turn up my volume here. There we go. Let's get that even lower. How's that, Michael? Let me know in the chat if you can hear me better. Move it down to 2. Let's see here. I don't know what the latency is on this chat either, so you could have typed that 20 minutes ago for all I know. We'll have to see. There we go. So, let me check this out here. There we go. I've got a lot lower now, so hopefully that's better. Maybe I can just, let me see what it's on now. It's 1. I'll drop it way down, and we'll see how that goes. Yeah, usually I'll have the music on at a certain volume. Okay, there you go. Better. It's so much better. There you go. All right. But usually I'll have the music on at a pretty decent clip, because to me it takes me a while to get into streaming and doing this work. It's trying to get into the zone of it. I just wish, for me anyway, one of the things I've been working on, and I think is so important to work on, is just making sure I'm keeping everybody posted on the process as I'm working on this stuff, because there's so many people who are I've learned a lot from, who are just great at doing streams and really great at promoting stuff. This guy who does a comic book called Graveyard Shift, named John Malin, was talking about how everybody is an introvert. Like, people keep writing him and saying, oh, I'm an introvert, so I'm I struggle. And he just said something I thought was really great. He said, he goes, so what? Like, I'm an introvert. We're all introverts. Get over it. Like, you need to go out there and promote your stuff. And it just was the kind of, funny advice, or straight on the nose advice, that I think it's good to hear, and it's good to sort of remind ourselves that we need to put our stuff out there. It's not rocket science. If you make stuff that's good and you put it out there and you treat your customers well, then you're going to do okay. It's not a secret. And I think that, it's really strange, because my experience has been watching people and, backing campaigns and learning from other people, which is one of the fun things about it, is that, it's like when I ordered that action figure from Todd McFarlane. Calling it action figure is probably a bit of an understatement, but when I ordered that sort of collectible figure for people who care about that kind of, how posable things are more than I do, it was late. There was a shipping container stuck in the, Suez Canal, and I think it was, I don't know how many months late it was, and I thought, this is a guy who is, his company has got millions, he's been doing this for a while, and it's still really hard, to get all this stuff organized and to do it. And so as, someone who has been, who's, done all that kind of stuff on a super small scale, I'm amazed, at how he does it. So I was never really concerned about it for a minute. Like, I didn't think Todd was going to run off with my money or anything like that. I wasn't vexed by that. And when I got it, it was great. Actually, my wife came home from work, and I had been waiting to see if I got an updated tracking number. And she, goes, "There's something here." I was like, "What is it?" And I was excited. I was excited to see it. Really amazing production. I just like the idea of backing people who are doing their own stuff and, just creating stuff I'm interested in. And that's a huge part of it, drawing, movies. I've always preferred or been fascinated by indie creators or work that was done, in time periods where the studios were more about making money, so that they were letting interesting ideas in that sold, things like Star Trek, things like The Twilight Zone. I think it was Frank Zappa who said that the music industry was better off when the people who were running it were just old, bean counters who didn't care like what it was as long as it sold. And he said creative tastemakers, when they took over, artwork got less creative. They began to be, the people who decided or wanted to decide what was cool and what wasn't. And I always say that, the people who cannot make the cool and interesting stuff should probably not be in charge of who gets to, who is cool and who gets to make work. Those aren't the kinds of people that you want in a position of power. You're better off with somebody who is just interested in rewarding success. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but that's how things, tend to work the most effectively, and that's how you get, the American comic book industry start was based around that. And that's what that's what I think it should be, and, it seems like it's the most democratic and certainly the most merit-based that I've seen. Because it's when you have to do everything yourself, you learn a ton, and you really have to. It's the idea of having to execute an idea that is not your own, and that's fine. I mean, if someone's paying you, that's fine. But if you don't come up with the idea, but you bear all the burden and the responsibility for the poor choices, it's just very demoralizing. And I think that's what, that's what people are finding out more and more, is that you really cannot, it's a lot harder than people think to crush somebody who's got their own voice and their own thoughts and is incredibly skilled. And it's one of those things that I would not want to ever be in that habit, because I just don't think I think it'll come back to bite you, because, sooner or later people just get sick of it. They just want to see this cool stuff that they like, and they're interested. Most people are working hard, working long hours, and they just want to relax at the end of the day and look at interesting work and not be lectured to, which is kind of an odd thing about recreation. But I don't go on recreation bits to get a lecture. Shocking, I know. Yeah, that's looking okay, I think. Let me see here. So, yeah, I mean, I've been looking at a lot of old films and a lot of films that would fall under, being somewhat trashy and schlocky lately, and I've just been going, oh, wow, this is what fun's like. I've had moments on streams and watching streams where I've laughed so hard I could not breathe, and, it's a really... it's sometimes I think it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget how to have a good time, and I see a lot of people get just, who I've seen just get progressively more and more sucked into, just getting trapped in that trying to control everything thought process. It's really weird, and you just think, whatever happened to fun? Like, whatever happened to just making stuff? And the thing is it's always a possibility. You just can't be around, and you can't, hang out where people who are miserable are. It's just not going to work. So like when I look at the people at Shout Factory and I watch their documentaries or some of the films that I'm getting, I mean, these folks are having fun, and they're like, we love this stuff. This stuff is so much fun, and we don't care if people think it's tacky. We don't care if people think it's cheap or whatever. We're into it, and I think there's something to be said to. My wife is still.
The volume all the way down.
You say that, but I don't believe you.
It is. Look.
Yeah.
It's all the way down.
All right, I'll believe you this one time. We have this like long-standing joke about volume on phones, but no, I mean it's a really it's a strange thing. I think when people get too into their own heads, it's like their well-being is about what everyone else is thinking and what everyone else is allowed and not allowed to like and not allowed to be interested in. You look at the work, like I don't know exactly how Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which Will Podorf was talking about the other day, I don't know how that passes certain tests. In fact, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. So we kind of went from youth culture and art culture being about, being free to express yourself, to youth culture and art culture being about the ability to control other artists and older artists and have people's lives destroyed. So that's kind of an interesting transition, but it's not my thing. And people who are addicted to that, it's really tough because they're perpetually in this state of looking for things to get pissed off about. And, it's unfortunate because it's just a misery prison. And people who are creating and making artwork and trying to improve, it's like, that's where you want to be. That's what you want to be doing. If you got a different opinion, make something good enough that people are going to want to and be compelled by that opinion. But you don't need to go and tell other artists what they can and can't do. That's sort of the opposite of what I used to have, thought of in terms of as a young artist. I remember having that explained to me when I didn't understand. So I was like, why the heck is this, this the thing, and what does this mean? But I never it never dawned on me to do that, in my 20s. And I think everybody in their youth goes through a period of saying, we're thinking dumb things. Of course, thank God we didn't have the internet. But about artists and things like that. But it was usually about, this person, this person copies this person. This person's a hack. Like, it's so funny. Things that you say from when you're young and stupid and outside of an industry. And then you get into it and you're like going, I should probably keep my mouth shut. Or, you meet the person and you're like, I'm an idiot. But now, it's like, I just think about, the idea of, saying this artist shouldn't exist. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, thank God I wasn't a part of any of that stuff. That's insane. And so the stuff I'm looking at is, it's nice to be reminded that there are people out there who think artists have a right to express, themselves, and people can do interesting things, and you don't have to agree with what everybody says or force everybody to agree with you. It's a terrible prison to find yourself in. And I've been looking at so much different work lately, and looking at work from all over the world. I was looking at what was I looking at there? I was looking at The Punisher by Mike Zeck, and looking at how that works. We got a sad face. Let me see here. Where is it?
That's a smiley face.
No, I know. I can't. I'm Michael. I need glasses. He just wants to know that, Michael. I need glasses. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. There we go. Oh, you guys. Thank you guys for your support. I love, by the way, that my wife's school account has a no whining symbol going across it. That's my... Michael, you know why I'm, you know, Michael. You know how I feel about that. That's why Lauren and I are married. That and the fact that she likes Blade. That's a huge part of it, too. It's funny. I think sometimes I'll be doing a stream and I usually stream at night, and I haven't always had her here with me while I stream, and I have to say, I kind of like it.
Oh.
I like having her here when I stream. It's fun. Because she's been watching me, do all this work, and been watching me kind of go through, my process as an artist and evolve how I think about it and what I want to do about it and all that kind of stuff. So, it's nice to have somebody who's who's a big fan and, supporter of, the work. And, yeah, it definitely is a lot of fun. But yeah, I definitely... And let me know if we're still on for our art lesson. I've got it on the schedule for 9 o'clock, so you let me know. I'm ready. I am ready. You got to just make sure you keep me on task so we don't end up talking about movies for 4 hours and you don't get anything out of it for yourself. Absolutely right, Michael. Absolutely right. Yeah, she needs to read that, I think. That's great. Yeah. That's absolutely... We were just talking about this today, too, right? That's absolutely true. You made her laugh. That's right.
That's very right.
Very right. He's a very smooth captain of the Starship Valiant. That's just the way that it is. Got some serious fans in this house, my friend. Some serious fans in this house. Let's see here. So, with a lot of this stuff, I mean, the biggest part of it is, trying to make it, feel more... It sort of looks intuitive, but it's, in a lot of ways, it's just, experimentation within certain parameters. So, I've already got some warm colors in there, but I'm going to put something that will look a lot warmer than it is, but it's still pretty close, into that shadow right there. And as a result, because it's a warm, and it's the opposite of... the blues that are around it, so it's an orange, which is the color opposite of blue, it's going to make, there'd be a much stronger color effect there. And so sometimes a lot of what makes the color work in the stuff that I'm doing is, let's see if I can make this happen here. A lot of the color stuff and what I'm doing work is the fact that I'm putting down really bright colors in the shadows and not even so much in the highlights. And that was something that took me a little while to learn. Was that the shadows were just as important in some cases and more important to get some of those brighter colors in, because I always thought, well, I should put brighter colors where the light is, but sometimes because the sunlight that comes through the atmosphere is blue, that's going to give you a lot of cool light on people's highlights. And so, oftentimes when you're trying to make flesh tone look more alive and more believable, that's what you have to do. Go. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a highlight in there. Yeah, and then it's coming together. Yeah, that works. Let me see here. Here we go. Let's see here. Oh, I have not... I mean, I probably may have slipped and shown it on camera, but I have not revealed the title of the comic yet. But I'm going to totally reveal it to you if we are doing artwork and hanging out tonight, or at least anyway, I'll send you a private chat of it. But yeah, I probably have slipped and shown it, but I don't want to say it yet. But it's you're gonna like it. You're gonna I don't know, actually I don't want to speak for you, but I think you're gonna like it. You'll get it. It's got an old school horror vibe to it, yeah, it's I'm so looking forward to it. I think you and I have been talking about comics and me doing comics for a while, and it wasn't until recently that I finally, I've backed enough, creator, funded and crowdfunded comics now, and been talking to some people in crowdfunded comics who have been really inspirational to me. And so that is a huge part of why. Hey, how are you doing? That is a huge part of why I am, why when I think about, you doing an independent film with an original concept, I get so excited because I want to tell everybody about it, and I am really interested in backing it because I love the idea of there being, I know how good you are with organizing a film shoot and how great you and Brady are and your entire team. So I just love the idea of, of backing a project, that's your own thing where you own the intellectual property and Brady and you are creating it, and owning it. It's so exciting. And so, yeah, the people that I've been backing and I've been, getting their products and things shipped to me, it's just the quality we can do now is amazing. I mean, it's as good as, anything off the stand, and in some cases better than the stuff that we grew up on. So my next book will have a similar, similar quality as the previous art books. Well, here I am working. So I'm reasonably alive and well. Let me see here. And yeah, I mean, it's I'm trying to remember like what the first thing I ever backed was. I mean, it's going back a ways. Because before I think I even backed a comic, I think I backed something else. I can't remember what it was though. I think it was a book. But in the last year, I think most of the stuff I've backed has been, or most of the stuff I've purchased outside of, Shout Factory horror releases. And I have to say, Michael, you have got to meet my friend Will Podorf. He's got a channel under that name. He's a stand-up comic, and he is a major horror fan. And he was talking about Arrow and Shout Factory releases last night, and I completely thought of you. I was like, you got to check this out. Just crazy good stuff. There we go. Yeah, it's coming together. There we are. Yeah, just trying to get the lighting on the neck of this character. And then this character's holding a sword, and because this is based off of this comic I grew up on when I was a kid, which I actually just got an art print. God, I gotta get a new chair. This chair is terrible. Got a new art print that's an old art print from the time it was released. And so I'm doing a kind of, I can't show the whole thing, so we are where we are. But I'm doing a tribute cover to it. Actually, you know what? Let me grab the comic, because the comic is going to be a little bit smaller, so it'll be easier to fit on screen. If I can find it. Nope. Where is it? Oh, gosh, I know it's in here. Oh, jeez. But I've got a lot of stuff in here. What is this? Gothic Knights. Hold on a second. What have I got here? Travis Sherritt's sketchbook. Richard Corbin's Werewolf. God, I love Richard Corbin stuff. Frankenstein Alive by Bernie Wrightson. It's probably in this stack. Here you go. All right. So, it's funny. Independent comics now versus then. So, let me zoom out a little bit here. I'm totally going to get the cover in the shot at some point. So, again, you're probably going to see the title anyway. So, this is the comic book series, and this is the cover that this is going to be a layout master of, called Grips by Tim Vigil and Chris Silver. And Tim Vigil, I was a huge fan of his. I just bought some original sketches of his online on eBay. This is Grips cover that was inspired by Blade Runner. And then this is Grips issue 3, Grips issue 4 here, I think. Then there is, where is it? Shoot, let me see if I can find. Okay, then there is, what is that? Oh, this is Gothic Knights by Tim Vigil, which is like a werewolf vampire story, and it's influencing my stuff. And I'm mixed in with that stack for some reason, even though it's newer stuff. I've got Graveyard Shift by John Malin and Mark Polton. I think I've got two of those, which is sort of a new indie comic. It's kind of like if the Universal Monsters were a superhero team. And then, oh yeah, here's another comic I had from my childhood, which was like called Splatter, and it's inspired, or the werewolf story I was showing you before with the vampires was inspired by that. But yeah, just tons of independent comics, and really cool stuff that I was inspired by. And yeah, it's great to have this stuff, and it's great to see what people are doing and what people are creating. Just got these Cyberfrog trading cards right here recently in the mail, and the production quality on them is fantastic. It's really nice thick cover stock. And then this is oh wow, I'm zoomed out more so you can see it. This is a Doc Nocturnal, which is like an old it's kind of done like an old pulp magazine, black and white comic. It's part H.P. Lovecraft, part Batman and the Phantom and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of people who are doing really cool work in that space, and I'm kind of curious to see where it all goes. And I'm interested. That's the space I'm interested in working in, because I like looking at work that's drawn with that old school kind of illustration sensibility of like really well drawn, really well rendered stuff. And and also that was just freer and more like, oh gosh, who am I thinking of here? Directors. Can't believe John Carpenter. So I was watching Big Trouble in Little China today, and then I was looking at Them. I was watching Them the other day, and I just was like, it's got Keith David and Roddy Piper in it, Roddy Piper in it, and it's just such a great flick. And I miss those days. I miss the days of that kind of flick and that kind of production. Just really cool stuff. And that's the stuff I'm interested in doing, is that kind of independent film, indie work, George Romero, all that kind of stuff. That's where it's at for me. And been doing work like that for a while. And now I'm kind of at the point where my skill set is able to. I would have always thought if I did comic book work or artwork in general that it was going to be pen and ink. But now now that I'm doing this, it's changed the way I think about my ideas and how I'm going to approach them. It's crazy, but that's the fun part about it. A good friend of mine, and she's a super amazing artist, and I were talking the other day, and we were just talking about where your work goes and that kind of thing. And she said to me, she was like, I said, what do you think? Like, what do you think about all this stuff and art and what do we do? And, she just said to me, she was just like, life is too short. You just gotta use your time to create things and do things that you care about and things that you enjoy. And if there's one bit of advice that, not that I'm interested in telling anybody what to do in this particular regard, but there's one bit of advice I would offer to people who are interested in making work and who are interested in doing things, is don't ever find yourself in a situation like I'm lucky to be, or I should say fortunate, because my wife hates the word luck, but I'm fortunate to have worked hard and find myself around people who work hard and who are creative and who are funny and who like being around other people who are creative, hardworking, and funny. And my whole attitude is if you ever find yourself around people whose attitude is, if I can't be, if I have no sense of humor, then no one else can, and if I can't be creative, no one else can, and if I can't, just get out of there. Be around people who, want to be around other artists and other creatives and other human beings who you can have a laugh with and who you can be creative with, and don't want to, just make everybody around them as miserable as they are. It's just not how you want to be. And it's easy for people to get, it's easy for people to get sucked into that, but as soon as you realize that's where you are, get out. We all have tough times, we all have things we go through, but if day to day your life is about making other people miserable and resenting other people's ability and talent, you're going to be really bored. Every person and really miserable to be around. When I look at I was looking at a cinematographer from Hammer horror films in the 50s and 60s, I believe it was. Michael is going to correct me on this because I think he knows better than I do. And I'm like, this person is amazing. How did I not know about this person before? The color theory that I'm using in this piece is inspired by this artist. I didn't look at this person and think, what right did they have to do that? Are they still alive? Can I cancel them? Like, those things didn't go through my head. I'm kind of, interested in seeing a lot of different perspectives out there. And I like people who work hard and focus on their craft and are entertaining when I'm trying to be, when I'm looking for entertainment. And John Carpenter has never let me down. Like, it's just, his stuff is just fun and crazy and out there and free. George Romero is the same way. Even if there's a film that someone's not wild about of his, much like Guillermo del Toro, I can appreciate his right to make it. And not even his right, forget that. I love his voice, the way that he does things so much, and it's always interesting, but I don't think anybody needs any. People need money to make artwork, but they don't need anybody's permission. And if you can raise money to make your own work, then you answer to your audience and nobody else. And and I say that as somebody who's a massive fan of one of the folks in the chat, Michael's Star Trek fan films. And I think that I don't know, when you follow a creator and you're interested in their work, it's more than just like, what do the neighbors think, what does everyone else think? And for my money, when I'm following people, and I don't know if I've said this to him or not, but when I look at and it's funny because I don't know that he would agree with this about it perhaps, but I think sometimes people think they're wasting their time during different phases in their career. And as somebody who was collecting comics in the 90s, I wasn't that interested in Ethan Van Sciver's Cyberfrog comic. But after his run on Green Lantern, one of the things that was interesting is I think he started out trying to do something that was like a lot of us did. I did that with my comic book Spring Ball, which was like a Todd McFarlane inspired book. And I'm not Todd McFarlane. Like, that's not the sense that it's hard to describe. There's certain artists who you're a kindred spirit with, even if you haven't thought about it, or characters in some instances. And I think after working on Green Lantern, it changed the nature when he returned to the character to make it more space-based and more intergalactic and more epic. And I think it was always meant to be a DC comic character. Not an actual DC comic character, but it has that flavor to it. There's a little Marvel in there, but it's so much more epic than that. And, that same thing goes with Todd McFarlane and Spawn, and being a huge fan of the designer and the creator of the original, Blade, and loving Marv Wolfman's writing. And, oh yeah, absolutely. Ready for that art lesson. Absolutely ready for that art lesson. It's, it's one of those things. It's like, when he did Spawn, I saw his Spider-Man stuff and I loved it. My favorite Todd McFarlane stuff is his Hulk stuff, obviously. But, because if you know me, not obvious to the average person, but I do have a gigantic Hulk statue back there. Todd McFarlane's Hulk. But, I love that stuff. I think it's great. But when he did Spawn, it was almost like he was going back, to the work that really inspired him, which was the Tomb of Dracula work. They asked him if he could only have one comic book. If he was on a deserted island and he could only have one comic book, which one would it be? And he said the comic it would be is the Tomb of Dracula omnibus. And when they said he was cheating, he goes, nope, that's still one book. So there you go. And he's got the money to make that happen. So, can't argue with him. But he said, yeah, Tomb of Dracula. And I had never realized what a huge impact that book had on him. Gene Colan's artwork was the stuff that inspired Todd McFarlane's Spawn, and it just was amazed by that. And then, like, when I saw it, I went, oh, that's where the cape comes from. Oh, that's where that comes from. And I think the Green Lantern had a similar... it didn't inspire the creation of the character of Cyberfrog, but I think it inspired the recreation and the rebirth, interestingly enough, considering how many comics called Rebirth he's associated with. But it inspired giving it that more epic sort of feel. And I think that I don't know if, I mean, obviously not everybody's going to go on to a major property and leave a legacy there like him and Todd have done with their characters they've worked on. But I think if you do, there must be something, inherently important, about, or it must speak to something in your work that you might not know is there. That light looks terrible. Hang on a second, guys. Sorry about that. Oof. Sorry about that noise. Sorry, folks. I got a very precarious setup here. But it's one of those things to where when I'm looking at artists and illustrators and how their work affects me and what I respond to, sometimes it's just the right creator ending up on the right character. And that's what makes it what it is. And, for both of those artists, I think that their game was changed. They found their voice working on someone else's thing because they were uniquely positioned to bring something interesting to it. And I don't think that always has to be the case, There are certain artists who, I think have their, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, that came out of the gates, as being this really great, this really great project. And it was inspired by Frank Miller, and it was, inspired by a lot of the artists they were huge fans of. And it's great work, but it didn't need to start somewhere else. They didn't need to do a run on Daredevil before they did that book. They came out of the gates on it. And but I think that for really big projects, and if you want to tell a really epic story, sometimes it's good to start, it's these creators benefit from being inside the industry. I think there's a certain point to where they outgrow it, obviously, and it's great for them to be able to create things that they have equity in. But I think that's definitely the case with both of them. They're very similar in that sense, and very similar in terms of their success, their attention to detail, and the way they apply their craft. Really good at promoting their stuff too, which is something we could all learn from. Todd did unbelievable service for the comic book industry, and I know he's a major inspiration to Ethan as he is to me. Just really brings a lot to his work. But then I think anybody my generation was influenced by Todd McFarlane, who became a comic book artist at some point. I mean, that's just the way it is. I'm influenced by things like King Kong and Frank Frazetta, and I would say Frank Frazetta has probably been my biggest influence for the last, certainly since around the time I started these art books, and the work that's in them. And Alphonse Mucha as well is a huge influence, but we all kind of started with, a lot of us who got into comics early on started with a love of Todd McFarlane stuff. It's just, I don't have that skill set, Oh, hey, there you go. Hey, Len, how you doing? Oh, nice. Yeah, there's some great stuff in those early superhero comics. Really great stuff in there. Yeah, big fan of some of the creators. Some of the Michael did a video on the documentary on Bill Finger, and it's amazing to just see the hand he had in creating Batman. But a lot of those creators that who you now see their names in the movie credits a little bit finally, which is great. But people like Graham Nolan, who created the character of Bane. It's like, it's, these guys are just, they're amazing with what they came up with and how they contributed to the industry. And I'm really happy to see them doing, crowdfunded work so that they can make some money off of their own ideas and things they have equity in, which is important. I know I say that word a lot, but it's just that word and its financial definition is probably one of the more important words for creators to be aware of. I had a student that I was talking to that I was advising, and I used that word a lot. I said, he was asking me about studying creative writing, I think it was, and I said, yeah, you got to learn how to write, learn how to make things that you own, because something that you own that makes a little bit of money where you get 100% of the profit. And this is, again, going back to things that Todd McFarlane would talk about, is so much more valuable to you, so much more valuable than anything else. It's just like, I don't understand, like, why, how do I word it? It's the burden is in some ways a little bit harder because you have to create your own thing and you have to make it good. But again, if I could suggest to anybody in this chat interested in self-publishing books, outside of the people that I mentioned, at least in the last minute or two, watch the Brian Pulido video on Coffin Comics YouTube channel from, I guess it's maybe from a week or so ago, I don't know, where it's called Calling All Creators, and he talks about people being too precious with their ideas and how not to. It's like 6 or so or 7 or so rules for creators. I was so impressed and inspired by it. I left a comment on there and was just like, this is really great wisdom. This is gold. Brian Pulido, Calling All Creators. And he talks about how he's been working in comics and publishing things for, 30 years, and what he's learned from it. And things that are really important, like, honesty and how you treat your creators or treat your audience, and trying to do the best things you can, and also working your tail off, which is the biggest part of it. I mean, some of the creators that I see on YouTube and I see online are just, I'm like, they work. I mean, I work really hard, but I mean really, really hard. I am very comfortable saying that. But when I see people like Todd and Ethan working, I mean, they make me really want to get better, and they really make me want to become a better artist, a better business person, more just all across the board, super inspiring stuff, and have a great sense of humor, and both of them have taken throughout their careers, and just a lot of stuff, a lot of junk, and they just keep going, and they keep making stuff. And I think that's probably true with any creator that's doing anything interesting. That's a huge part of it. I mean, Todd McFarlane, my gosh, during his heyday, everybody had an opinion on what he was doing, and when they were founding Image Comics, and then it's like, a short time afterwards, everybody's benefiting from it, and people are making documentaries about it. It's like, I mean, I think they're doing okay. I mean, Todd's doing okay financially, certainly, but I'm sure there's this element of, that's what we were trying to say before. And I imagine it's going to be the exact same thing with Ethan, but, doesn't make it any easier. Although I think that the more you run into stuff, as Denzel Washington would say in that video that I'm so fond of, let me see if I can make this line a little bit better. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. And it's definitely true. And one of those people, and both of them, frankly, and almost everybody, obviously I think everybody I've mentioned today, Brian Pulido as well, they deserve everything that they've earned, and they have worked really hard for it, and so do the people who work with them. So, I mean, keeping yourself in that mindset when you work is a really good idea. I try to look at people who are successful and hardworking, and, I certainly have been, in my limited experiences with some of them, in my bigger experiences with some of them in terms of quantity of time, I think I've been treated well by all of them, and been encouraged, to do better at my craft and in my career. And I just hope that that the stuff I do is, contributes to building work that gets people excited about comic books and gets people excited about my work. I think everybody, needs to bring their A game, and needs to be, needs to pay respect to people who are, really successful at all this stuff. All right, my friend. All right, take care, and good luck with the jump there, and I will see you at 8. Take care, boss. I will see you soon. And actually, I'm going to be wrapping this up in a little bit. 9 o'clock my time, I'm going to be teaching, but teaching Michael some drawing, which is very cool. But I'm going to wrap this up because I do have to get some downtime and between streaming and teaching. And I might do some more. I'm going to be doing a lot more streaming right now because I want to promote my work, and I got a lot of stuff on my mind lately. So let me make sure I get this line work in there. I'm going to give you one extreme close-up before I go. So let's get... There we go. Let's see if that'll focus. There we go. As Bob Ross would whisper. There we go. Just getting those lines in there. I'm really loving painting bats lately. Really love it. They're just... And I'm doing a lot of it with shadow and value and that kind of thing, but really coming out really great. And I did that in my other, my second art book. I painted some bats for the first time, and I'm just having a really good time. All right, everybody. I feel like I want to steal this YouTuber D Amazing's tagline, which is do good, be good, and drink your water, because I think that's one of my favorite taglines I've ever seen. You're very welcome. All right, everybody. Have a good night. And take care and be good out there. And I will see you soon. All right.